What's going on, guys? Inside MMA here, and we are back with another Fight Night prediction video, Royval versus Taira. I do want to say real quick before I even get into anything, UFC 307, I picked Khalil Roundtree, as we all know, but I switched that pick last minute to Alex Pereira round 1 knockout. Back on the winning streak, finally, after about 5 pay-per-views of getting it wrong, but I don't want to exaggerate because he was a 4-1 favorite, so so... Just note that I'm back on my winning streak going into UFC 308, one of the biggest pay-per-views of the year. It'd be great if I could pull that off. Anyway, if you guys wanted to know my predictions on Artur Beterbiev versus Dmitry Bivol, I have Bivol decision. It's a very big boxing fight to me. I think it's going to be the best one technically this whole year. I don't think there's a better fight you can book. I think they're two of the best in the world. Definitely the best two in their weight class. Depends how Beterbiev comes out and what he can do. But I think people can control the pace like he usually does. But anyway, I did make this video very early. I just never got the chance to post it. And then one of my picks, which was Abdul Razak Al Hassan against Josh Friend, pulled out. So had to take that fight off and redo this whole video. So, yeah. But, anyway, let's get into the predictions. First fight, Clayton Carpenter versus Lucas Rocha. Carpenter comes in minus 210. Both guys, well, Rocha has a Contender Series win, a big knee over Davi Bittencourt. Carpenter has a round 1 sub against Juan Camilo Ronderos in his UFC debut. Two guys, very good prospects, a very good flyweight fight, a very good way to start a fight night card. I think this will be competitive, but I do think Rocha has much better striking. I don't think the grappling will be much of a problem for him. I don't think that they are very far off in terms of grappling skill. So I think Rocha is going to finish this fight in the second round. He has rarely gone the distance in his 17 fights, and in his 18 fights and 17 wins, he has finished 14 of those fights. So, expect a finish here when only 18% of his fights have gone the distance. I don't think Carpenter is that good of a striker, so I do think he's got that in the bag there, but he is an underdog. Next fight, Cody Haddon versus Dan Argueta. Dan Argueta is coming off of a loss to Gene Matsumoto by submission. He's had a weird kind of career in the UFC so far. The controversy with Ronnie Lawrence, the fight with Miles Johns, it's kind of all been out of control. He's fighting Cody Haddon. Cody Haddon is a guy who's never gone to a decision. He's got a very good Contender Series win where he looked just completely better. His only loss is to Steve Erceg, and it's by decision. So all I'm going to say is don't expect this fight to go, the distance. Both guys definitely get finishes. But I think Cody Haddon is definitely the future of bantamweight. He's one of those guys that are just so very good. And I definitely see him finishing this fight. Argueta gasses very quickly, and he kind of puts a pressure on himself that he can't keep. Haddon's very technical. He'll catch him when he's shooting for those wild scrambles. I think he may even be able to submit him, but I'm not going with a submission in this fight just because I think he's a very good striker and a much better striker than he is a grappler, which will definitely help him in this fight. I have Cody Haddon winning this fight by round 2 knockout. So back-to-back round 2 knockouts. But this will be my first lock of the card as we are going to lock in the Cody Haddon money line at minus 180. Next fight, Corey McKenna versus Julia Polistri. Not a big fan of this fight. I could really care less. Polistri's coming off of a loss to... I actually don't remember. Corey McKenna she's kind of mixed results in the UFC. The grappling has kind of been where she's faded. She's coming off of a big submission loss to Jacqueline Amarine. Julia Polistri is coming off a decision loss to Josephine Knudsen, which isn't really a bad loss. She was on a big win streak before she got that fight. I see this being a pretty easy decision win for Polistri. Nothing crazy. I feel like she's definitely got the grappling advantage. The boxing won't really matter to me. Because McKenna isn't that much of a finisher. So I have Polistri taking the decision in this one. Wouldn't lock it in. It's a women's fight. You never know nowadays. But yeah. Next fight, Junior Tafa versus Sean Saraf. Now, this was originally supposed to be Chris Barnett versus Waldo Cortez Acosta. Then Waldo Cortez pulled out with so I think it might have been an injury. I'm not sure. So then this was supposed to be Junior Tafa versus Chris Barnett. Chris Barnett pulled out due to the hurricane that had just hit Florida. It hit his house, destroyed his house. He had to pull out. And this 4-0 guy, Sean Saraf, who has no wins over anyone with winning records in those 4 fights, that's his opponent. So, I don't have much to go off of. But I'm just going to say Tav is more experienced. The grappling, I don't think will play a factor. So I think he wins this fight by round 1 knockout. I've learned my, picking random heavyweights that are making their debuts and not making that mistake. I did that Braxton Smith versus Parker Porter. I paid terribly for that. So I think Tav is going to get the round 1 knockout. I'm not going to lock anything in, though. Yeah. Next fight, Nico Price versus Temba Garimbo. Temba Garimbo coming off of a win against Ramiz Brahimaj, however you say that last name. Not a great win. I honestly do think Temba is like a can crusher right now. They have booked him against the worst guys in the world. Pete Rodriguez, also. And I'm trying to think of who his other opponent was. I don't even remember. So, Takashi Sato. That's who it was. Not good wins. All guys who have lost a lot. And he lost to a guy who's not even he's not even signed in the UFC anymore, which is AJ Fletcher, who tapped him out. And that is supposed to be his kind of thing. Nico Price, on the other hand, comes in as a plus 300 underdog in this fight. Price is coming off of a short notice win against Alex Morono. I think the whole fight was on short notice, or maybe I think Morono might have stepped in on short notice. I don't remember. All I know is one of them was on short notice. But yeah, he's a plus 300 favorite. He's got the loss to Robbie Lawler, looming a little bit. He's got the 3rd round knockout loss to Phil Rowe as well. But I do think that those losses, Phil Rowe is undoubtedly, in my opinion, a top 25 guy in the welterweight division. Robbie Lawler still has bombs in his hands, and other losses that Price has gotten in the past, being like Vicente Luque. These are not bad losses, and to beat Alex Morono is a pretty good win because Morono really is a solid guy who is definitely better than Temba Garimbo. So, with that in mind, I don't think Temba's very good. I'm going to make the take now. I think he's got a one-dimensional wrestling style. He's been booked against guys who are not strikers on purpose. Ramiz Brahimaj is a one-dimensional kind of grappler. He's not a very big finisher. Takashi Sato was on a 2-3 fight losing streak. Not very good anywhere. Pete Rodriguez is a striker, but he's not very good. He's been outboxed by guys like JDM. He beat Mike Jackson. That's not really a win to be proud of. So I'm going to go in on a huge, crazy pick here. And I'm going to go Nico Price by round 1 knockout, preferably a knee, is what I'm going to say. I think he could definitely catch him with a knee. Nico is crazy from his back. He's crazy on the feet. He could definitely catch Temba with a big shot. And I'm going to lock that pick in. And I am going to make the bet that this fight does not go the distance at all. And you should lock that in. I'm going to make that a lock. This could be one of the legit biggest locks of the year. Nico Price, round 1 KO. As you can see, he's a plus 300 dog on the money line, but this exact result probably bumps it up because a lot of people have Nico winning by decision to about plus 500. I would say Nico Price to win by knockout is plus 800 right now on the betting odds. So I'm going to go with an 8-1 bet here and roll with Nico Price by round 1 knockout. Lock that in. Next fight, JSP Jonathan Pierce versus Pat Sabatini. JSP is coming off of a loss to a ninja choke to Joe Anderson Brito in a loss and a scrap to David Onama. Pat Sabatini coming off of a loss to Diego Lopez. Sabatini's pretty chinny. Pierce is pretty on the ground. It can honestly go either way, but I think Pierce is definitely the better two-dimensional guy by a mile. I think he tags Sabatini early in this fight and gets him out of there. And, he's on 2 fights lost in a row. He's a really good prospect. He wants to bounce back and prove himself. I think he will, and I think he will get this done by round 1 knockout. Sabatini has 5 losses on his resume, and I'm pretty sure Sabatini has been knocked out in round 1 of both of his knockout losses in the UFC, which are Diego Lopez and Damon Jackson, both coming in the first minute. So JSP, who is 14-6, he's got 9 wins by knockout. I definitely see him taking this fight by round 1 knockout. Next fight, CJ Vergara versus Ramazan Tarimov. Tarimov is a pretty good prospect, 7-2 from Uzbekistan, as we see all these Uzbekistan prospects coming kind of out of the blue. They're all pretty good. CJ Vergara, on the other hand, is kind of like a flyweight top 30 gatekeeper. He is coming off of a loss to Iju Amabayev, who's very good. He's also got losses to Ode Osborne. He's got the armbar loss to Taira, but he's pretty bad on the ground, kind of where his weakness is, but he does have wins that are keeping him in the UFC, like the win against Vinicius Salvador, the comeback against Daniel Lacerda, obviously. But Tarimov is on a really, really big streak. I think it's at 8. Might even be in the double digits. He's on 4 round 1 knockout wins in a row. 2 in Ryzen as well. I have a lot of faith in this guy. I think he's going to be something big. I don't think he's going to get Vergara out in the first. I think he will be a little jittery, but when it enters the second round, I feel like he'll get a lot more comfortable and he'll start laying off the big shots. So I do think he's going to get a finish by knockout in this one. Vergara has a really tough chin, though. He's hard to knock out, but I do see Tarimov getting this done in the second round, and I will lock in the Temirov money line. He has a hard name to say. At minus 350. That is my third lock on this card so far. So yeah, there's more. Trust me, there's a lot of locks on this card. Up next, speaking of Alex Morono versus Daniel Rodriguez. Daniel Rodriguez is on a 3-fight losing streak, which is kind of crazy because none of the performances to me are necessarily bad. He obviously has the loss to Kelvin Gastelum last time out. He has the knockout loss to Ian Gary, and I think the other one is the loss to, the Darce choke to Neil Magny. He honestly should be on 4 losses in a row, considering everyone knows he lost that Li Jingliang fight. But he's going up against Alex Morono. Alex Morono is kind of like 50-50 to me. He's coming off the loss to Nico Price, like we just said. He has a win before that, I think, over Court McGee. He has a loss to Santiago Ponzinibbio somewhere in there. Loss to Joaquin Buckley, win against Tim Means. I see D-Rod finishing this. Morono goes to the distance a lot, but I think guys like Buckley aren't very good finishers, after the first round against those types of wrestling styles. D-Rod is a very tight boxer. He's crisp. I think he can tag Morono easily. He's not a wild man like Nico Price either. I see him getting this done in the second round by knockout. I think there's going to be a lot of finishes on this card that are going to shock a lot of people, but I'm going to roll with that D-Rod in the second round. I think Morono's chin is just so faded at this point, and I don't see him having a route where he could beat D-Rod anywhere. So I'm going to go with the minus 210 Rodriguez. I'm going to lock that in, the Rodriguez money line here. And yeah, we're going to go with that. I have one more lock on this card, which I will get into. But up next, Grant Dawson versus Rafa Garcia. Rafa Garcia is on a 2-fight winning streak, which includes wins over Clay Guida, which was his last fight where he looked very good. But after all, it is Clay Guida. And a very dominant win against Mahashate. Grant Dawson obviously coming off a win against Joe Solecki, a loss to Bobby Green. Here's the thing with this fight. Garcia doesn't have great grappling. That loss to Jakar Close showed it. That is his only real loss in a while. He also had a fight against Nasrat Haqparast, which kind of showed it as well. But I see him going out there and putting up a good early round, but I think Dawson will take it over as time goes on. I think Dawson's getting way more comfortable. He's 9-1 in the UFC. He has 5 of his 9 fights coming by way of finish, and I think a lot of people have just forgotten that. He gets finishes. He gets finishes. He started off in the UFC getting a decision against Julian Erosa, who's pretty hard to finish, but he has 2 round 2 rear naked chokes, 2 round 3 rear naked chokes, and that round 3 buzzer beater knockout against Leonardo Santos. So I see him getting this fight by round 2 or round 3 submission, but I'm going to go round 2. I don't think people really remember how good of a finisher Grant is. It's not like he's getting these wins outside of the UFC, these finishes. I feel like he's gotten more finishes in the UFC than he's gotten out of the UFC. Well, actually, that's not true. But he's a finisher to me. He has 21 fights on his resume, or at least 21 wins. 17 come by finish. Garcia's a great fighter, but I think if Dawson can keep on the ground for more than 5 minutes, it's wraps, honestly. Dawson's fought these guys like Damir Ismagulov and like Julian Erosa, who are just very hard to finish. So yeah, I see Dawson getting that by round 2 sub. Last lock of the night comes in this one. This is I'm guaranteeing this right now. If you want to put your money on it, despite what I say, this fight is not going to the second round. It's not going to the second round. I guarantee it. I will put all the money I have in my bank account, in my savings, on this fight. One guy who literally just finished his fights in round 1 on the feet versus one guy who has an exciting style and finished his fights in round 1. Jared Gooden, Chidi Njokuani. This is a fire matchup that I love a lot, and I do think that it will come down to whoever can initiate their game plan first, whether it be Chidi piecing up Jared Gooden or Jared Gooden using his grappling, which is Chidi's ultimate weakness, to finish the fight. And I think Jared Gooden both play smart. He just got back in the UFC. He wants to keep a good winning streak going. He will get Chidi on the ground and he will submit him. It's what Michael Olejniczuk did. At least he ground and pounded him. It's what Gregory Rodriguez did. It's what a lot of the guys who have beaten Chidi and Njokuani have done. And I think Jared Gooden will get to that early, fast, and get the win. I think it's very likely. Chidi, I think, has been submitted 4 or 5 of his 10 losses. And Jared Gooden has 7 decision losses, which isn't Chidi's route of victory because he doesn't have a lot of decision wins. I think he has 17 finishes in his 23 wins. I have Jared Gooden getting this done by round 1 sub, and I'm going to lock in the Jared Gooden money line at plus 150. Those are all my locks for this card. I'll put them in the description. And, yeah. Co-main event, not expecting a lot from this fight. 2 guys who are not very good finishers. Brad Tavares is always just kind of in that gritty vet that drags the fight and gets the decision. He's like a Neil Magny at middleweight. And Jung Park showed how boring his fights are. Andre Muniz one is a prime example. I have Jung Young Park taking this fight by decision. I think just Tavares' shit is faded, and that was kind of his main thing. Jung Young Park has a better grappling. He has a loss to a really good grappler like Andre Muniz. I have Jung Young Park taking this fight by decision probably every round. I don't see him knocking Tavares out. And now, the main event. I want to keep a good streak going here. I want to at least get 2 in a row right. Brandon Royval versus Tatsuro Taira. This fight is very exciting to me. I think it's definitely going to decide. It's either this fight or the Albazi-Brandon Moreno fight that decides the next title shot, or it's just Kai Kara-France. But I'm very excited to see how Taira does on the feet. I don't think that Alex Perez fight went far enough. I don't think I never posted my predictions when that fight happened, but I did go Alex Perez to beat Tatsuro Taira, and I paid ultimately for that. I also did pick Royval to lose to Moreno, so I made both of their last fights wrong, but I did pick Royval to beat Pantoja. So I've actually gotten their last 2 fights wrong, considering I went Carlos Hernandez. Very bad at predicting these guys. But I do think that Royval really wants that title. He will come in and defend the takedowns that he's expecting. He won't fight the kind of patient fight that he did in the Pantoja fight. He knows better now. He won't go out there and do that. He knows this kid's young. He wants to go out there and finish him and make a statement of why he deserves another title shot. Taira is going to come out there. He's going to try to grapple. He's going to try to mix it up. He's going to try to get the finish. I think this is a guaranteed finish inside the first 4 rounds. I don't think this fight goes the fifth. I don't think this fight goes the distance. And I think Brandon Royval is going to take it by round 2 knockout, and here's why. I think, like I said, I think he'll defend the takedowns very well. I think the grappling exchanges is something Taira has never had to deal with, and I think he's come close to being submitted in the past. I could see it happening. The way Edgar Chairez was able to jump on guillotine on Taira, I think Brandon Royval has a much better guillotine than Edgar Chairez. He has very much better submissions. He's very skilled on the bottom. It's something that Pantoja avoided simply because Pantoja is so scrappy and he just kind of keeps his chin tucked when he's on the ground. I don't think that Taira really wasn't able to do anything against Alex Perez on the ground up until the finish as well. And I think Brandon Royval is a better grappler than Alex Perez. So I think if this fight goes on the ground, Royval will have somewhat of an advantage. I think Taira's young, and I just don't think it's his time yet. He's got to get a little more experience to be at the top of the flyweight division. I have Brandon Royval taking this fight by round 2 knockout purely because I think his striking is a billion times better than Taira's. And I know Taira has a knockout win over Carlos Hernandez, but that's not really a big win to me. So, at least not boxing-wise. Carlos Hernandez isn't the best boxer in the world. So, I do think Brandon Royval is going to take this main event. He is the plus 240 dog. I'm pretty confident in this pick, and I'm going to stick with it. So, yeah. With that, my locks, as I said, Cody had a money line at minus 180. Nico Price round 1 knockout at plus 800. Ramazan Temirov money line at minus 350. Daniel Rodriguez money line at minus 210. And Jared Gooden money line at plus 150. These are my locks for this fight night card, and I'm very excited for this fight night card. So with that, I have been Inside MMA, and see ya.